Hello and welcome to The Rebels, chapter 36 of the book I have been reading without any editing. That's right, folks. No editing whatsoever. Why? Because the friend I'm reading this for thinks that my mistakes are funny. There's no accounting for taste. So, if you're brand spanking new here, hello, thank you, welcome so much. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really happy you came here because there are so many cool things to see on YouTube. So if you found me, I must be doing something right or you're doing something very wrong. Either way, enough of all that. Let's jump into it. This is The Rebels, chapter 36. 2 weeks after my conversation with Eleanor, I was in the field again. I lay behind a downed tree on the edge of a hayfield, waiting, waxing mentally philosophical. Or bullshitting myself. Take your pick. The lookouts had noticed a routine of 3 trucks heading north to Portland every other week, and a dispatch of scouts confirmed the road used as well as the regularity. Deciding where to ambush the trucks had been a conundrum as there were several likely spots, so we picked the most unlikely spot we can find, an open hayfield on either side of snake curves. The trucks needed to slow considerably to make it around the corners, and in the meantime, the grass grew just long enough to hide a person or 10. A phoenix lying to my right rolled to her back, basking in the sun. "How's it going, Captain?" "Oh, you know," I scratched my side, "enjoying the whole sensitive skin and grass thing. Thinking of taking a nap." Phoenix yawned. "Nap sounds nice. Bastards better hurry up or else we'll all be asleep before they get here." I squinted up the road, wishing I had a pair of sunglasses. You only needed them once or twice a year, and when you did, there was never a pair to be found. Maybe Steve's already taking a nap. Maybe. The homeland's pretty warm, ain't it? Humid, too, right? I squirmed in the grass, irritated by the tiny abrasions. I hated hay. Just as I opened my mouth to continue complaining, River on lookout cawed. "Shit's going down, people, so look alive," I called in a low voice. Metallic snicks and clicks sounded through the warm air as fighters readied weapons. "Well," I panted, Thrain's body a heavy, limp bundle over my shoulders and a fireman's carry. "At least we know we've got Steve's attention." "You think?" Phoenix growled behind me. Ahead of Eleanor, Evenstar pulled weakly against the women towing her, trying to join me. Half of us were loaded down with bodies, while Storm led the front, taking any trail that took us deeper into the hills, and Phoenix guarded our rear. "I can't believe Steve actually ambushed us," Phoenix snarled. "They had to get smart sometime," Eleanor gasped. "Yes, but in the trucks! We've seen those trucks heading north for weeks, and they just so happen to have soldiers in them the one time we stopped those damn things." We'd ambushed the trucks as planned, the nail-riddled strips across the road doing their job, only to have a dozen or more soldiers hidden in each truck ambush us. 3 fighters never got up. Thrain died hurling his wife out of a bullet's path, amazingly firing twice and taking a soldier down with each shot. Now I carried him over my shoulders. Our numbers were down to 12, and more trucks had arrived, disgorging soldiers like clowns from a tiny car. My best estimate had us outnumbered 4 or 5 to 1. "It had to happen sometime," I grunted as my foot slipped and I nearly went down. Regaining my feet, I powered up the slope. "This just means we need to get more creative, too." At least we'd picked a spot Steve hadn't expected an ambush from, and a few hurled grenades gave us just enough time to get out of sight with our dead. Those who weren't carrying a body lugged weapons and doubled up with the small packs. A sticky, warm dampness spread down my back, mingling with sweat. Phoenix planted a hand on my butt to boost me up a steep point in the trail, then patted my rump. "All in, all out," she encouraged before dropping back. Dark had settled fully before we felt safe enough to stop. I groaned as helping hands relieved me of my burden, and then I flopped to the ground, stretching my back in relief. But we were unable to rest long. We needed a secure camp and some sleep. A strange rustling had me sitting up, and I gasped in horror at the sight confronting me. "I am not sleeping in that thing!" I stalked over to the woman working. "Why not?" Phoenix asked, offended. "We went to a lot of trouble to get it." "You did not," I said crossly. "You stole it from some house." "So what? We needed something big enough to meet in when it rains, go over maps, shit like that, and there's no reason it should be empty during the night. Since you're the only one we may need to find in a hurry, you should sleep in it." The object of our disagreement was a green and gray camping tent, big enough to sleep four according to the label, and rising like a fungus. Phoenix decided we should use it as a command tent. "Ever think that if you can find me, so can Steve?" "What makes you think they'll find it?" "I don't know. Maybe because those colors practically glow at night, and the forest is literally crawling with Steve." I waved my hands, feeling a little dramatic, although a thought flitted across my mind. "Guys, over here!" I woke the instant a hand closed over my mouth, holding my Glock like a child clutches her teddy bear. Phoenix leaned in. "They're here," she breathed. I sat up, groaning silently as strained muscles complained with every movement, easing the blanket back and pulling my holsters out of my pack, which doubled as a pillow. Strapping the holsters on took mere moments, and then I stood, ready to go. This night we hadn't even removed our boots. All around me, fighters awakened from where we'd scattered throughout the thin underbrush. The muffled sounds of people trying to be stealthy filtered up the hill to us. I smiled. Those bastards should have spent more time hunting. Then maybe they'd have learned what it really means to stalk prey. Crouching, stretched my legs and hips as I carefully poured water over the dirt, mixing it to make a mud paste that I then smeared over my face and exposed skin. Stealthy movements in the shadows and pale skin disappearing told me the others followed suit. As soon as everybody covered up, we were ready to go. Seahorse took Legs, a track runner we'd rescued in the buscapades, and Hawk to the left, and River went to the right with Feisty and Storm. Phoenix followed at my right shoulder down the middle, while Dionysius, a young man who'd also volunteered as soon as he was freed in the buscapades, followed behind. Dionysius had proven, I don't know if I'm saying that right, had proven to have a quick, capable mind and training, and he hadn't lost his cool during the failed ambush, so he showed promise. Eleanor and Doc stayed at the camp, mostly to keep an eye on Evenstar. We didn't want her going suicidal on us, for her son's sake as well as ours. Heading down the hill, we shifted from tree to tree, shadow to shadow. The moon had nearly set, and the shadows it cast concealed rather than revealed, allowing us to move more quickly than we'd originally anticipated. At a rough estimate, 10 soldiers surrounded the tent, left like an offering in a shrouded clearing. A few bundles on the ground, each had another soldier standing over it, so 20 in all. I'd barely felt Dionysius tap my shoulder, telling me he'd caught up when Steve moved. They didn't shoot. Instead, the men tried taking the bundles at their feet prisoner, while 3 men slashed the tent open, leaping inside, ostensibly to take us by surprise. The swearing had just begun when it became our turn. I did not leap out and yell, "Now!" In my opinion, doing so would have ruined the element of surprise. I simply opened fire from behind my tree while my world broadened to see the other flashes all around the camp and narrowed to each target in front of me. Screams and shouts rang out from the soldiers while my fighters stayed deadly silent. Then Steve took the initiative and charged. "Gang up on 'em!" I bellowed, dropping the rifle to bring up a handgun. The first soldier was nearly on me when I shot him. Air puffed past my face, and the next soldier rose up, mouth open in a silent scream. My world narrowed further to become the people immediately around me. Screams, shots, the hot splash of blood, the numb thud of a blow landing, it all blurred in the dark. "Don't let them hit you. They hit you too hard, you won't recover in time. You're dead." The litany repeated over and over as I spun, suddenly finding a knife in my free hand. My gun emptied, so I holstered it and drew another, never stopping my forward motion. A couple strained in front of me, shrieks of rage from the one on the bottom. I drove forward, knocking a man back, and we fell. I twisted, landing on top of him, knife tip first. Rolling to my feet, I aimed at the first body in front of me, only to realize my people were the last ones standing. "Everybody okay?" I said harshly. My left hand twitched involuntarily, and I realized I still clutched a bloody knife. I cleaned it on a body and sheathed it in the small of my back again, ignoring the blood coating my hand and sleeve. It blended well with everything else I could see. We mostly suffered scrapes and bruises, though River had taken a blow to the stomach, bad enough she needed help to walk. "Some of these bastards are still alive!" Phoenix called from where she knelt next to a soldier. Are we killing them? The soldier nearest her scrabbled weakly, trying to escape. Before I could respond, Storm hailed me from the trail downhill. Captain! We've got incoming, maybe 2 miles out! I spun back to Phoenix. Leave them! Leave all of them! But, I ignored her. Load up and move out! Catching my urgency, everybody raced up the hill to collect our people. I slung my gear belt around my hips, fastened the canteen snugly, and slung on the small pack. Evenstar still knelt at Thrain's body. I rested a hand on her shoulder. We need to go. Steve's coming, I said to her and Eleanor standing right behind her. Thrain! Evenstar clutched my hand. All in, all out, I assured her. Kneeling, I took one cold hand and wrestled him up. Rigor mortis had set in, so I needed help to get his body over my shoulders. The others, also carrying bodies, came over and took up their smaller burdens. How much time do we have? I asked Storm. A little over an hour, she responded. They don't do too well at higher altitudes, especially on foot. Good. Keep us moving. Let's hope the kids made it to Bastard. The lack of communication meant planning out alternative meeting points. For some reason, everybody liked to name these points after swear words. Phoenix! Yo! Take Hawk and watch our back trail. Slow him down. Don't get caught and don't lose us. I saw Phoenix punch the air and head downhill with Hawk while the rest of us made our slow way after Storm. Eleanor and Evenstar assisted those of us loaded with the bodies of our dead, and Doc helped River along. We climbed, the time marked only by the stars turning in the heavens. Every step became agony, and my back and shoulders screamed in pain with every jarring motion. Maybe 2 hours after the fight, I heard a series of evenly spaced shots downhill. Too high to be rifles, but the event was swiftly forgotten under the trial of putting one foot in front of the other. By the tilt of the Big Dipper, 4 a.m. had come and gone before we made the gravel road. Dareva, High Tide, and Wilder, a young woman from the Buscapade, were waiting for us, hiding in the bushes. Storm whistled shrilly to let Hawk and Phoenix whistled shrilly to tell Hawk and Phoenix to move their asses. Then we loaded the trucks. All the bodies went in with Wilder, who also had Doc, Evenstar, and Legs. Take them back to the lair by the most direct route you can, I told Wilder, stretching my back and shoulders while everybody else picked a vehicle. High Tide, go with them as a guard. Dareva! I put a hand on the girl's shoulder. We're the distractions. Remember the locators Anansi planted? The kid had been busy as all hell these last few months, and this would be the first time we implemented an idea of his. All trials had been successful, but adrenaline and fear changed the parameters in ways we couldn't predict. Oregon grapes, the 3 drivers chorused. I gave them a thumbs up and leaped into the back of my old GMC. Dareva preferred driving her, and I preferred riding in that truck, though I discovered the girl had made an addition. I'd bought the truck with a toolbox in the bed, just behind the cab. Dareva had added another one right by the tailgate. A quick peek showed a jumble of boots, clothing, and blankets, while the one at the cab was loaded with weapons and ammunition. Phoenix jogged out of the trees, followed by Hawk. Phoenix immediately veered towards me and the pickup, while Hawk jumped in with Wilder. We all formed small groups within the hole, even during the end of our world. Hey, Captain! Phoenix rolled into the bed of the truck, keeping her rifle clear. Did you know Steve would do that? Do what? They executed their wounded. The words dropped into the early morning air, rocks in a still pond. Those gunshots earlier suddenly sprang to mind, and dread settled in my gut. Oh, I shook my head. I thought Steve would stop to care for them, give us a bit more time. River retched out the window, but that might be due to the blow to the stomach and all the jogging. Yeah, Phoenix snorted, carefully pulling out the huge Barrett sniper rifle she'd finally gotten proficient with from the toolbox and assembling it. They slowed down. Not as much as they should have, I muttered. Raising my voice to carry over the murmurs rolling around the trucks, I called, You heard what they do to their own, so don't get caught. Yo! No problem! Wilder's truck, loaded with dead and wounded, left first, followed closely by High Tide, who had the majority of the able-bodied fighters to guard them. My truck pulled onto the road last, and we split off at the first turn, hunting Steve. Anansi and his people had only just gotten his idea situated, and I looked forward to disappearing off Steve's radar. Or dying abruptly. At this point, it was a toss-up. Finding an enemy truck didn't take long, and getting their attention took even less effort. Then our insane, underage driver took off like a bat out of hell, spraying gravel as she took corners too fast. As soon as we had enough of a lead to drop out of sight periodically, Dereva and the Celt, her navigator, spotted an Oregon grape and screeched to a stop. Me and Phoenix piled out and rustled the bushes lining the road. The kid was thorough, I'll give him that. 3 of the bushes were removable, lifting easily out of holes barely large enough to fit the burlap-wrapped roots. As soon as the truck could fit, Dereva drove through and we dropped the plants back in, holding on to them to keep it steady until Steve passed. A quick check of the road showed us this truck patrolled alone, so we moved the plants out again and got the truck back on the road. It took barely a moment to wedge the boards and Nancy left back in. My little genius thought of everything. You know, I frowned at the road behind us. We should have planted a couple landmines first. If Steve ran over one, great. If not, dig him up again. Phoenix laughed. Remember when we used to feel bad about ambushes? Seems like ages. Was it really only a few months ago? I had no idea what month we were in, but I guessed May or June. The first ambush would have been roughly January-ish when I'd been so reluctant. Huh. Sirius should be home soon, I said irrelevantly. Dereva accelerated and we knelt down to brace as we opened the weapons box to get ready. We caught up to Steve quickly, just a glimpse around a corner, and Phoenix braced the bipod of her sniper rifle on the cab of the truck, while I stood, legs spread and knees bent slightly, 1 foot in front of the other to keep my balance. We came to a straight stretch of gravel, the trees opening enough to give us a good field of view, and a better one of the patrol truck roughly 75 meters ahead of us. I bent, swinging the large metal tube we'd just assembled up, resting it on my shoulder, swaying like a drunken sailor. Phoenix craned her head around to squint up at me. You sure that's the front? No. Ah, okay. She turned back to her rifle, tucking stray bits of hair under the bandana tied around her head and clearing her line of sight. I'll just get ready to shoot then, shall I? Yeah, you do that. I squinted through the scope, aiming. Eleanor walked barefoot across the grass in the meadow around the Lairs door to greet us. Dereva and the Celt must have told her we were coming when we'd stopped to check in with the perimeter guards. So, did the rocket launcher go how you expected? Phoenix and me gave each other sideways glances. Not exactly, Phoenix admitted. She had a red mark like a sunburn on the right side of her face, and the exposed skin of her forearm showed more of the same. There was a lot of kick. A lot of boom, too. Don't forget the fire, I added. Some screaming, a little falling. I arched my back and rolled my head around. I'd feel it in the morning. I see, Eleanor said evenly. And will you be playing with such dangerous toys again? Hell yeah, we chorused. Technically speaking, our first outing with the rocket launcher was a success in that Steve's truck blew up, leaving a smoking crater in the gravel road, a burning hulk, and more bits scattered around. It also knocked me on my ass, slamming me into the clothing box. Ironically, if the box hadn't been there, I'd have broken my neck, landing with my head on the tailgate. In between enemy contact, we'd tested the theory. We'd also been jarred just as I squeezed the trigger, so the barrel of the launcher had pointed slightly downward while Phoenix bounced up, which is what led to her looking like she'd gotten a bit too much sun. Also interesting, I'd have missed the truck completely if not for that pothole. The rest of the day and part of the evening had been spent tearing over the countryside, shooting trucks and leaving Steve on a merry chase and generally causing havoc and chaos. Anansi bounded out of the lair. You're back! He ran over to me, wrapping an arm around my waist as I wrapped one around his shoulders. How'd my idea work? We'd be dead if it weren't for you, I told him honestly. There were so many soldiers out there. You have everything really nicely spread out, too. I hugged him. Thanks. This almost makes up for the vodka. The boy sighed, unusually somber. We have the graves ready. My smile died. We'll have the funeral in the morning. We have a lot of funerals, don't we? He sounded like a lost little boy, and I remembered he was only 13. At least we brought them home. Small comfort, but it was all that I had. I surveyed the small meadow. 4 new cairns laid in a row, the people surrounding those forming small clusters, with a tiny divide between fighters and civilians. The civilian families or friends of the fallen looked at the fighters with a degree of blame in their eyes, while the fighters looked back with defiance and grief. Birch loved to dance, an older woman choked out, wiping her eyes. Hail the victorious dead, the fighters intoned as one. People who'd never seen a funeral yet, Bear among them, looked about, eyes wide at the solemn men and women. My niece was an artist in her spare time. A man rubbed a trembling hand over his mouth. She called herself Foxglove. Hail the victorious dead! The fighters spoke louder, as if to drive away the fear that lived in each of us. I didn't know Thestral well, the Celt spoke up. She didn't know what happened to her family, but I know she had a wicked memory for stories, and she could hustle pool like nobody's business. Hail the victorious dead! Evenstar stepped forward now, laying a small flower on Thrain's cairn. He was a wonderful man, she whispered thickly, a good father and husband. I am she swallowed, tears falling, so fortunate to have known him. Hail the victorious dead! Death found us all. The best we could hope for was to die with purpose. Thank you so much for being here. I will be back next week with chapter 37. Yeah, that's all I got today.